Imagine earning $20,000 more than you did 5 years ago, but feeling broke. Like genuinely poorer. You make more money, but somehow you can't afford the same life you used to have. Welcome to Australia in 2025, where nearly half of lower-income families are legitimately worried they can't afford to buy their kids school shoes. Not a car, not a vacation. Shoes. We're talking about one of the wealthiest nations on Earth, where people are choosing between heating their homes and feeding their children. This isn't a recession. GDP is fine, unemployment looks okay on paper, but something is rotting from the inside out, and if you stick around, I'm going to show you exactly how Australia became one of the most quietly brutal places to simply exist. By the end of this video, you'll understand why an entire generation is now planning their escape from the lucky country. Part 1. The Boiling Frog Economy. How Australia quietly became unaffordable. Here's how it works. You don't notice you're being cooked alive because the temperature rises 1 degree at a time. In 2020, you paid $3.50 for a loaf of bread. By 2022, it's $4. By 2024, it's $5.50. Each jump feels small, annoying, but survivable. You adjust. You complain to your partner at the checkout. You move on. But here's the thing. Your wages didn't jump with it. Your rent didn't stay the same. Your electricity bill didn't freeze in time. Everything went up all at once from every direction, while your paycheck stayed basically flat. And now, in 2025, you're standing in the grocery aisle playing a mental game of Tetris, trying to figure out which items you can cut this week so you don't go over budget. You think twice about every single item now. Cheese? Maybe next week. Snacks for the kids' lunchboxes? Only if they're on sale. A piece of fish for dinner? Forget it, pasta again. This is the boiling frog economy. And millions of Australians are trapped in the pot. Let me give you the numbers because they're worse than you think. A recent survey found that 9 in 10 lower-income families are worried about affording basic back-to-school supplies. We're not talking about iPads or fancy excursions. We're talking about uniforms, shoes, pencils. 4 in 10 parents genuinely fear their kids will miss out on these things because they can't afford them. Laura, a single mother of 4, put it like this. Some weeks were good, some weeks were down, and I have to go into the community and ask for vouchers. She's not unemployed. She's not lazy. She's working, managing 4 kids, doing everything right, and she still has to beg for grocery vouchers just to survive bad weeks. She said, "The cost of living has gone up dramatically. It's crazy, and it's getting crazier. It's continuous every year. Everything is going up and up and up." And she's not alone. Head over to Reddit, and you'll find thousands of Australians describing the exact same reality. People talk about cutting out takeaway completely. No more concerts. No more trips to the movies. Self-care. Forget it. Hobbies. Gone. One person wrote, "I used to go to the gym, get my hair done, grab brunch with friends. Now I do none of that. I work, pay bills, and sit at home." Here's the part that makes this truly insidious. Inflation is slowing down. The government and the Reserve Bank love to remind you of that. Inflation is under control, they say. And technically, they're right. Prices aren't rising as fast as they were in 2022, but here's what they don't say. Prices never come back down. This is called the ratchet effect. Once prices go up, they stay up. Forever. Bread hit $5.50, it's staying there. Rent jumped by $200 a week, is not coming back down. Electricity bills doubled? Welcome to your new normal. Inflation slowing doesn't mean relief. It just means the pain stops accelerating. You're still in the pot. The water is still boiling. You've just stopped noticing because you've been in there so long. So now, ordinary families are making what researchers call heat or meat decisions. Do I pay the electricity bill so the kids don't freeze at night? Or do I buy enough groceries to last the week? Do I fill the car with gas so I can get to work? Or do I pay for my daughter's school shoes? These aren't hypothetical scenarios. These are real choices happening in real households every single week across the country. And the emotional toll of this is crushing. Parents describe feeling shame when they can't afford what their kids need. Exhaustion from constantly calculating every purchase. Decision fatigue so severe they can barely function. Stress that follows them everywhere, even in their sleep. One parent said, "I feel like I'm failing my kids, even though I'm doing everything I can." Now let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't just about individuals struggling. This is about the collapse of an entire generation's future. According to research from Curtin University, child poverty in Australia increased from 15% in 2023 to 15.6% in 2025. That's over 1 million children now living in poverty. 1 million kids growing up in households where basic survival is a weekly negotiation. And here's why that matters even more than you think. When kids grow up in poverty, they fall behind in school, way behind. By year 9, students from disadvantaged backgrounds are 4 to 5 years behind their peers in literacy and numeracy. 4 to 5 years. That's not a gap you close with a bit of extra tutoring. That's a gap that follows you for life. It affects your job prospects, your earning potential, your health, your relationships, everything. So when households break, everything downstream breaks too. Education breaks, health breaks, social mobility breaks, and trust, that invisible glue that holds a society together, breaks too. People stop believing the system works for them because it doesn't. And here's the thing, this is just the beginning. Because once you can't afford the basics, the next layer of survival kicks in, and that's where things get even darker. Part 2. Heat, meat, and debt. When survival replaces quality of life. Let's talk about what happens when you can't afford the basics anymore. You don't just cut back on luxuries, you start making decisions that quietly destroy your future. Laura, the mother we talked about earlier, relies on community vouchers to survive bad weeks. Think about that for a second. She's working, she's responsible, she's doing everything society tells you to do, and she still needs charity just to feed her kids. That's not a personal failure, that's a system failure, but it gets worse. According to research from the Smith family, 56% of lower-income families believe their children will miss out on necessary digital devices because they can't afford them. We're not talking about PlayStations or fancy phones. We're talking about laptops for school, internet access at home. 44% of students in Australia, that's 400,000 kids, aren't digitally included. They have no internet access at home. Let that sink in. In 2025, in one of the wealthiest countries on the planet, nearly 500,000 children are trying to do homework without internet. They're trying to keep up with online assignments, video lessons, and digital textbooks, using nothing but their parents' phone data. And when that runs out, they just fall behind. Quietly, invisibly, year after year. Laura said it perfectly. Otherwise, they'd just be using the internet off my phone, which would be impossible. That just makes it so much harder for them because all the homework and correspondence with the school is online now. They would just miss out because I can't afford them. This is the technology gap, and it's not closing, it's widening. Every year, the kids with resources get further ahead, and the kids without resources fall further behind. It's not a competition. It's a massacre. And again, this isn't just statistics. This is real people describing their lives on Reddit every single day. People cancel Netflix, they stop traveling, they stop celebrating birthdays properly. One person wrote, "We used to have a little weekend trip every few months. Nothing crazy, just a drive to the coast or a night in a cheap hotel. Now, we can't even afford that. We sit at home and try to pretend everything is fine." This is the loss of joy, not dramatic suffering, not homelessness or starvation, just the slow, quiet disappearance of anything worth looking forward to. Life becomes bills, work, sleep, repeat. There's no reward, no relief, no moment where you get to exhale and enjoy being alive. You're just surviving, week to week, forever. And then there's the interest rate situation. The Reserve Bank raised rates 11 times between 2022 and 2023. 11 times. If you had a mortgage, your monthly payments exploded. If you were renting, your landlord passed those costs on to you. Even if you were doing everything right, saving money, living modestly, paying your bills on time, you still got crushed. This is where the poverty trap kicks in. Once you fall behind, even a little bit, the system starts punishing you. You miss a payment, you get hit with a late fee. That fee makes it harder to pay the next bill. You overdraft your account, another fee. Your credit score drops. Now loans cost more if you can even get one. You're drowning in fees and penalties, and the harder you try to escape, the deeper you sink. And the mental health crisis that comes with this is completely invisible. Nobody's tracking it properly, nobody's funding it. But it's everywhere. Anxiety, burnout, short tempers, emotional numbness, parents snapping at their kids over nothing, couples fighting about money constantly, people lying awake at 3 a.m., doing math in their heads, trying to figure out how to make it through the next month. One Reddit user described it like this: I used to have dreams. I wanted to start a business, maybe buy a house one day, travel a bit. Now I don't even think about that stuff anymore. My only goal is to not go backwards. That's it. Just don't go backwards. That's the survival mindset. Ambition gets replaced by fear. Planning for the future gets replaced by just trying to survive today. And when an entire generation stops dreaming, stops planning, stops believing life can get better, that's when a country starts dying from the inside. So now we've covered the grocery bill, the utilities, the school supplies, and the crushing psychological weight of just trying to survive. But we haven't even touched the biggest disaster yet, the one thing that's breaking more people than anything else, the thing that's turned Australia from the lucky country into a housing hellscape. Let's talk about rent. Part 3. The housing death spiral. When shelter becomes speculative instead of human. Here's a fact that should make you angry. Australia is missing 50,000 homes every single year. Not total, per year. That's a decade-long backlog we'll never catch up to. The country literally cannot build fast enough to house its own population. Why? Because construction productivity has dropped 18% over the past 2 decades. We're slower, more expensive, and more inefficient than we used to be. Builders can't find workers. Materials cost more. Planning approvals take forever. Everything that needs to go right for housing to get built is going wrong, all at the same time. So what happens when you have way more people than homes? Basic economics. Prices explode, rents go vertical, and people get crushed. In Sydney, the median rent is now around $815 per week. That's over $3,000 a month for a rental, not a mortgage on a house you'll eventually own. A rental. Money you'll never see again, paid to a landlord who's probably negatively gearing the property and getting tax breaks while you drown. And wages, they're lagging, way behind. The average income in Australia hasn't kept pace with rent increases for over a decade. So people are spending 50, 60, sometimes 70% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. Everything else, food, transport, healthcare, savings, gets squeezed into whatever's left. Vacancy rates in major cities are hovering around 1 to 1.5%. That means for every 100 rental properties, only 1 or 2 are available at any given time. So when a place opens up, it's a bloodbath. Dozens of people show up to inspections. Families beg landlords to pick them. They offer to pay 6 months up front even if they can't afford it, because the alternative is homelessness. And that's the other thing nobody wants to talk about, working homelessness. It's not just unemployed people or addicts living on the streets anymore. It's people with jobs, full-time jobs, people who work 40 hours a week and still can't afford rent, so they sleep in their cars, they couch surf, they move back in with their parents in their 30s and 40s. One person on Reddit wrote, "I have a degree, a good job, and I'm sleeping in my car 3 nights a week because I can't afford rent and save at the same time. And if you have kids, forget it. Constant moving destroys them. Every time you get evicted or priced out, your kids have to change schools. They lose their friends, their grades drop, their stability evaporates. Research shows that housing instability in childhood is one of the strongest predictors of poor outcomes later in life. Mental health issues, difficulty forming relationships, lower earning potential, it all traces back to never having a stable place to call home. So why is this happening? Why can't Australia just build more homes? Well, part of it is structural, but part of it is intentional. Because in Australia, housing stopped being treated as shelter a long time ago. It's now a financial asset, an investment vehicle, a way to extract wealth. The tax system is designed to reward property speculation. Negative gearing lets investors claim losses on rental properties as tax deductions. Capital gains tax discounts mean you pay less tax when you sell a property for profit. So the system actively encourages people to buy multiple properties, push up prices, and treat housing like a stock portfolio. Meanwhile, first-home buyers are shut out completely. They're competing against investors with giant deposits, better financing, and tax advantages. It's not a fair fight, it's a massacre. The average age of a first-home buyer in Australia is now 38. 38. That's not normal. That's a society that has completely abandoned an entire generation. And here's the thing. This doesn't just hurt people trying to buy. It hurts renters too. Because when housing is treated as an investment, landlords don't care about providing good shelter. They care about maximizing returns. So they don't maintain properties. They don't fix things. They jack up rent whenever they can. And if you complain, There are 50 other people waiting to take your place. One Reddit user, comparing Australia to London, said, "I moved here thinking it'd be cheaper. It's not. Between groceries and rent, I'm spending more here than I did in one of the most expensive cities in the world. At least in London, the public transport worked. And the long-term consequences of this are terrifying. Young Australians are delaying starting families because they can't afford housing. Birth rates are collapsing. The population is aging. Fewer workers will support more retirees. The whole demographic structure of the country is quietly falling apart, and nobody in power seems to care. Because housing isn't seen as a human right anymore. It's seen as an asset class. And when you treat people's homes like investment vehicles, this is what you get. A death spiral. Not enough homes, rents through the roof, families destroyed, generations locked out, and a country that's slowly suffocating under the weight of its own greed. But even if you can somehow afford rent, even if you're barely hanging on, there's still one more daily humiliation waiting for you. One more way the system squeezes every last dollar out of your wallet, and it happens every time you try to feed yourself. Part 4. Colesworth. The supermarket squeeze and the rage it creates. Let's talk about groceries. Because in Australia, 2 companies control almost everything you eat. Coles and Woolworths. Together they own around 70% of the grocery market. That's not a free market. That's a duopoly. And when 2 corporations control your access to food, they can do whatever they want. And what they've been doing for years now is price gouging. People noticed. Oh, they noticed. Across Reddit threads, news articles, and social media, Australians have been screaming about grocery prices for years. The anger finally got so loud that the government was forced to act. In 2026, they're introducing price gouging legislation. Think about that. The situation got so bad, so blatant, that the government had to step in and create laws to stop supermarkets from ripping people off. But here's the thing. Even with legislation coming, the damage is already done. Prices are locked in. The ratchet effect, remember? And Coles and Woolworths have gotten very, very good at squeezing every possible cent out of shoppers without technically breaking any rules. Let's talk about shrinkflation. You know how your favourite chocolate bar used to be 200 grams and now it's 180 grams, but it costs the same? That's shrinkflation. Less product, same price. It's a psychological trick they're hoping you won't notice. And most people don't until they do. Then they feel scammed, betrayed. Like the companies they've been loyal to for decades have been quietly stealing from them. And it's not just shrinkflation. It's what people online call enshittification. Products getting worse while costing more. Store brand items that used to be decent now taste like cardboard. Fruits and vegetables that rot within 2 days. Meat that's more fat than protein. The quality is collapsing, but the prices keep climbing. Then there's the psychological manipulation. Sales cycles that aren't really sales. Prices get jacked up for a few weeks, then dropped back to normal and marketed as a 50% discount. Metro stores charging more than suburban stores for the same products. Delivery services adding hidden premiums. Online orders where the prices are higher than in-store and you don't realize until the bill comes. One Reddit user put it perfectly. I used to just grab what I needed and go. Now I have to check unit pricing, compare brands, wait for sales, use coupons, and even then I'm spending 50% more than I did 3 years ago. Grocery shopping used to be a chore. Boring, but harmless. Now it's a financial anxiety event. You walk into the store and your heart rate goes up. You're scanning prices, doing mental math, making sacrifices. Okay, if I skip the juice, I can afford the cheese. If I get the cheaper bread, maybe I can buy some fruit this week. And middle-class families, people who used to shop at Coles or Woolworths without thinking, are now switching to Aldi. They're buying in bulk. They're timing their shopping around sales cycles. They're using coupons and discount apps just to afford the same life they used to have. The Reddit consensus is clear. Groceries went from a chore to a battlefield, and people are losing. But the worst part? The nutritional downgrade. When you can't afford fresh vegetables, you buy frozen. When you can't afford quality meat, you buy the cheapest processed stuff. When you can't afford fruit, you buy sugary snacks because they're filling and cheap. And over time, that destroys your health. Obesity rates go up. Diabetes rates go up. Heart disease, cancer, everything connected to poor diet starts climbing. This isn't just about money. It's about long-term health decay. It's about a generation of kids growing up on the cheapest, worst food available, because that's all their parents can afford. And 20 years from now, we'll be dealing with a public health crisis that traces directly back to this moment, when two corporations decided profit was more important than people. But here's the bigger picture. This isn't just about Coles and Woolworths. It's about concentrated corporate power. When a small number of companies control essential goods, they can extract value from every household in the country. They can squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because you need to eat. You don't have a choice. And when people feel powerless, when they feel trapped, when they feel like the system is rigged against them, something inside them breaks. Not all at once, slowly, quietly, but it breaks. And what comes out the other side isn't pretty. Part 5. The End of She'll Be Right. Social cohesion collapses under economic strain. Australia used to have something special, a culture of mateship, of helping each other out, of the fair go. The idea that everyone deserves a decent shot at life, and if you're struggling, your neighbours will help you through it. That's dying. Maybe it's already dead. The Scanlon Social Cohesion Index, which measures trust, belonging, and social connection, hit its lowest point since 2007. Australians trust each other less. They feel less connected to their communities. They report lower levels of belonging, and the worst hit groups, young people and low-income Australians. The people who need social support the most are the ones losing it the fastest. On Reddit, people talk about it constantly. Etiquette is disappearing. People are angrier. Everyone's out for themselves now. Road rage is everywhere. Public confrontations are common. Impatience and hostility have become the default. One person described it as the human zoo effect. Pack too many stressed, exhausted, financially desperate people into crowded cities, and they start turning on each other. This isn't abstract. This is real, observable behaviour. People cutting each other off in traffic and screaming. People snapping at cashiers over nothing. People shoving each other on public transport. It's not because Australians are inherently mean, it's because stress breaks people, financial stress especially. When your brain is constantly in survival mode, empathy shuts down. You stop caring about others because you're too busy trying to save yourself. You stop helping your neighbours because you can't even help your own family. You stop being kind because kindness feels like a luxury you can't afford. And social media makes it worse. Every algorithm is designed to amplify outrage. Every feed is filled with people screaming at each other. Every comment section is a war zone. The internet takes normal human irritation and turns it into weaponized hostility. So now, on top of financial stress, people are living in a constant state of manufactured anger. And the terrifying part, the crisis is invisible. Society still functions, trains still run, shops still open, GDP still grows. On paper, everything looks fine, but underneath, the fabric is tearing. People are meaner, lonelier, angrier, less willing to help each other, less willing to trust institutions, less willing to believe things can get better. One Reddit user summed it up. Australia used to feel like a community. Now it feels like a competition. Everyone's trying to claw their way to the top, and they'll step on you to do it. And when that's the vibe, when that's the culture, you don't have a society anymore. You have a collection of individuals all trying to survive alone, and that's when things really start to collapse. Part 6. The country that stops caring. The humanitarian cost nobody budgets for. So here's where we are. Economic decay doesn't stay economic. It becomes cultural. It becomes humanitarian. When people can't afford to live, they stop helping each other. When families are drowning, they don't have the energy to support their neighbours. When communities are broken, they don't organise, don't gather, don't build anything together. Everyone retreats inward. Everyone isolates. And the country becomes colder, meaner and more hostile with each passing year. Charities are now permanent infrastructure. Organisations like the Smith family aren't temporary stopgaps anymore. They're essential services holding the country together. Without them, millions of kids wouldn't have laptops, internet or school supplies. Without them, millions of families wouldn't eat. That's not a thriving society. That's a society on life support. And the kids growing up in this, they're falling 4 to 5 years behind their peers academically. 4 to 5 years. That's not a gap you close with a good teacher. That's a chasm that shapes their entire lives. Lower earning potential, worse health outcomes, higher rates of incarceration, higher rates of mental illness. The data is clear. Childhood poverty creates lifelong damage, and it's not just the kids, it's everyone. Emotional exhaustion is spreading like a virus. Burnout, nihilism, hopelessness. People describe feeling like they're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, and no matter how fast they run, they're still falling behind. One Reddit user wrote, "I feel poorer, angrier, and more alone than I did 10 years ago, and I'm supposed to just accept this as normal. And that's the thing, it is becoming normal. Decline becomes the baseline, suffering becomes the default, and after a while, people stop remembering what it felt like when life was good. When you could afford a house, when groceries didn't cost half your paycheck, when you could take your kids to the movies without checking your bank account first. When joy was a regular part of a life, not a distant memory. Here's the paradox at the heart of this story. GDP can rise while life quality collapses. The economy can look healthy on paper while real people are drowning. Corporations can post record profits while families can't afford school shoes. The numbers say everything is fine, but the numbers are lying. And the long-term danger isn't just economic, it's existential. Because once decline becomes normal, once people stop believing things can get better, once they stop caring about each other, you can't reverse it. You can't just flip a switch and restore trust. You can't rebuild community overnight. You can't unbreak a generation of children who grew up in poverty. Decline isn't dramatic. It's not a sudden collapse. It's slow, quiet, yearly, almost impossible to notice until it's too late. Like a frog in boiling water, you don't realise you're being cooked until you're already dead. And that's where Australia is now. In the pot. Water boiling, and nobody's turning off the heat. So what happens next? Does the country wake up? Does it course correct? Does it remember that a society is supposed to take care of its people, not just its profit margins? Or does it just keep getting worse, year after year, until an entire generation decides the lucky country isn't worth staying in anymore? I don't have the answer. But I know this. If you're feeling poorer, angrier, more exhausted than you used to be, you're not imagining it. You're not failing. The system is failing you. And it's been failing you for a long time. The question is, how much longer until people stop accepting it?